by the way, a little bit more about the International Accounting Standard Board's suggestions and why the Financial Accounting Standards Board here in the United States receives these suggestions and tries to accommodate them, or at the very least considers them for incorporation into U.S. generally accepted accounting principles. The reason why is to bring U.S. GAAP more into line with international generally accepted accounting principles. The best case I can think of to illustrate where U.S. companies have exploited loopholes and vulnerabilities of international GAAP is Enron. If I understand correctly, do not quote me on this, I am not speaking as a subject matter expert, but if I understand correctly, I believe Enron was using a homegrown principle or methodology called marking to market, where they would mark up an asset based on its current market value. And that led to a very inflated, positively inflated balance sheet. So, like, let's say they bought commodity X on January 1st for $1,000, and by March 1st, let's say it was worth $5,000, they would mark to market, they would increase the value of that asset so that it sat on the books at $5,000, not $1,000. Now, that's a violation of historical cost. Okay, but again, they were exploiting some kind of a loophole or opportunity in international GAAP that was allowed under American GAAP, and so that's why the FA, and that led to some major problems, and in fact, Enron eventually went under. I'm not saying that was the only reason or that was the sole reason why Enron, but there were companies that were doing things like that. They were exploiting vulnerabilities in American GAAP, in U.S. GAAP, that had been plugged by international GAAP. And the thing is, international consumers of U.S. financial statements were thinking that the same generally accepted accounting principles that apply, say, for example, in Europe, were being applied in the United States, when in fact they were not. So the purpose of being willing to receive and review and possibly incorporate IASB suggestions, which take the form of IFRS, International Financial Reporting Suggestions or Standards, I can't remember what it's called. But the reason why FASB is inclined to receive these suggestions and review them is, again, to bring U.S. generally accepted accounting principles more in line with international accounting principles.